Yo, what's up, everybody? It's HBT with my man Jim
What's going
Rogers.
What's going on, everybody? How's everybody doing today? I hope you're having a blessed day, man.
Oh yeah, guys. I was trying to put some music on, but I ended up messing up there. But that's okay, man. We just went straight into this thing. And Jim, let everybody know exactly what you and I are going to be talking about here, man.
Well,
Of this.
this may give some people an idea.
All
Um,
right.
if nobody actually knows, that is a duplicate of the Mid Atlantic States Heavyweight Championship from the NWA.
All right.
The re and the reason, Harry, I actually wanted to do this is because I just got informed that the NWA is starting their territory system again.
Yeah, they are. They are. They have been popping up all over the place. And one of the meetings I had today, Jim, was about a territory that's coming here to South Carolina. And I was talking to the promoter who's going to be the promoter of that territory. So, yeah, so that is happening, man. It definitely happening. But I was talking to the guy who's going to run that promotion, who's going to be head, who's going to be the head of that promotion. It's going to be in Clemson, South Carolina. That's not too
Right.
far away from me. It's going to be in Clemson, South Carolina. But that's where the NWA territory is going to be situated here in South Carolina. So that's pretty much was a little bit on the hush and hush, but it's basically out there. He contacted some other promoters about it, and well, he contacted them about some other stuff, and then he said something. They pretty much ignored him, and he said something about the NWA territory. He was going to be pretty much over that, and then they got it back in touch with him. He didn't want to have anything to do with him because it came off pretty arrogant. So he got in touch with me, and pretty much me and Chris. Chris wasn't, Chris was working today, but got in touch with another guy who Chris and I are working with, another promoter, and that promoter called me, and we got together with this other promoter, and we talking to him, and he's going to be over the NWA territory, so I will be involved in that. Just put it that way.
Okay.
Put it that way. I
So
will be involved in that. Plus, like I say, as far as the little, the indie territories that I will be booking for, included with that, but I will be involved in that territory in some kind of way. I'm not going to tell you to say exactly which capacity I will be involved in it, but I know they are coming to the area, and yes, I will be involved in it, man. No doubt about that. But yeah, they are running with this territory system again, man. It's incredible.
So what are we talking? Are we talking the rebirth of the Mid Atlantic Championship Wrestling?
I'm not exactly sure what we're gonna call that when it gets here. When that territory gets here, because like I say, it's months away from everything being developed. But yeah, we got a lot of things that was pretty much donated from Clemson University. We got 2 rings. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to call that territory because each and every one of them, have a territorial name. So
Right.
I'm not exactly sure on that. But, man, it's going to be interesting. And all I can say is I will have a major part in it. That's all I can say about that, man.
That'll be awesome, man. That'll be awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I may have to make me a little trip up there to visit with y'all.
Oh, I hear you, man. I hear you.
Or you can make a trip down here. Either one, man.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Let me yeah, if you haven't, go ahead and share it, man. You can go ahead and share this podcast to, go ahead and share it. Go to my page or whatever, share to your podcast if you haven't already did that. I'm going to go ahead and share over to Straight Up Wrestling Show.
And ladies and gentlemen, if you are, when you are watching this and everything, if you want a second part to this, give us a thumbs up.
Yeah, straight up. Yeah, definitely hit that thumbs up, man. If you over on Facebook, if you like this, once we get it rolling, we about to get it rolling in just a little bit. You on Facebook, hit that like, share, join. If you on YouTube, hit that like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, ding, 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 so you know when we're on like times like these Over on Twitch, you do the same thing that you do over here on YouTube. And over on X, guys, you guys have been coming alive. Definitely appreciate that. Hit that like, share, tweet, and retweet, and follow the Straight Up Wrestling Show over on X. But yeah, Jim, let's go ahead and rock and roll with this thing, man. Let's rock and roll. Let's talk about some of these territorial feuds. And man, I know you got some on the docket. Those Georgia championship feuds that you want to talk about. Let's go ahead and start off with one of them from Georgia, man.
Oh, well, first of all, I have to bring in the Georgia title here.
Okay.
Yeah, I had to bring it in.
I remember that belt, man. I remember that belt.
Well, believe it or not, there was a coin in that belt. I found this out by the current Georgia heavyweight champion, Terry the Rocker Lawler.
Okay.
And he told me that there was a coin in there at one time, and the coin fell out. So Mr. Wrestling number 2, what he did is he put his picture in. He cut a little picture out and stuck it in there.
Okay.
In that spot. But when it comes to Georgia heavyweight championship, that believe it or not, that territory started in 1944,
right,
by the promoter Paul Jones, not the wrestler.
Yeah, the promoter Paul Jones.
Paul Jones. Now the title. Now there's some convolute. It's a little gray area with the title because their first champion was John Malden in 1938.
Okay.
But it was named the Georgia title in 1964.
Right.
And you had famous people like Sputnik Monroe, who was a Georgia champion, Nick Bockwinkel, the Assassin, Freddie Blassie, Ray Gunkel, Bill Watts. People like that were the champion. Buddy Fuller, Ron and Robert Fuller, their dad was a Georgia heavyweight champion. Dick the Bruiser was also one of them. But there were a lot of feuds in Georgia heavy championship wrestling.
Okay.
I can think of one off the top of my head. Mr. Wrestling number 2 and the Masked Superstar.
Mr. Wrestling number 2 and the Masked Superstar, man, that was a big time feud. Wow, man, Mr. Wrestling 2, just incredible. And I remember when that feud was going on. What was basically the years of that feud? I think between like 84 and 86 or something like that.
No, actually, because
83 and 85. One of the two.
It was I think it started in 80, in like either 79 or 80, somewhere around there, because in 1981, what it was is it culminated into a unification match because the Masked Superstar, Bill Eadie from Demolition, he had won the NWA National Heavyweight title.
Right.
And Mr. Wrestling number 2 was the Georgia heavyweight champion. So so in 1981, what they did is they unified the Georgia heavyweight title into the national heavyweight title. So it was one title then.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're going back to the start of it. I remember because Masked Superstar was going back and forth between Georgia Championship Wrestling and Mid-Atlantic because he was under Paul Jones for a while there. But later on in his career, I remember between 83 and 85, he would show up over. That's when pretty much Mid-Atlantic and Georgia Championship Wrestling pretty much started combining a lot of shows, and he went back up there and they reignited the feud. I remember that. Well, but I think that was a shorter term.
Well, see, Crockett and the Briscoes and Ole Anderson, who owned Georgia at the time, they were working together. The promoters would always work together.
Yeah, they did.
You would have people like Eddie Graham would send people to Georgia or send people to Crockett, to work them for 6 weeks at a time.
Oh yeah.
Or they would send them to Bill Watts in Mid-South.
Mid-South was called what was Mid-South called at that time? It was
it was Mid South, and then it got changed over to Universal Wrestling Federation.
Oh, it was something before Mid South. It was called
Um,
something else before Mid South too. I remember. I can't remember the name, but yeah, it was called something else, and then it became Mid South. Oh, wait a minute, I could be wrong. That could be something else I'm thinking of. Never mind that. But yeah, Mid South, and then it became Universal. UWF.
well, there were two places
I'm
that I
thinking
can
about
remember.
the Tri-States area, man. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. There was two places in Georgia that were near Atlanta that were historic. The Omni and also the Cobb County Civic Center.
Oh yeah, yeah.
A lot of the feuds and matches happened at the Cobb County Civic Center. I grew up right near there, probably 10 minutes, 15 minutes away from there.
Okay,
And
okay.
we would go there, and I remember seeing Chief Wahoo McDaniel getting busted open by Ole and Gene Anderson.
Right.
And he was I believe his partner was Mark Youngblood, if I'm not mistaken.
Who's partner? Wahoo, yeah, Chief Wahoo.
Wahoo.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And I do distinctly remember being there and watching Wahoo, who was one of my favorites growing up.
That was in the 80s right there. That was in the mid 80s, man. Right before the mid 80s hit, when the Chief Wahoo McDaniel and Mark Youngblood teamed up, because up until like 83, it was Jay Youngblood and Ricky Steamboat, and then Mark Youngblood had came in. He teamed up with Jay. Then he ended up teaming up with I think Jay ended up going to Southwest Championship Wrestling or somewhere in Texas, and he ended up teaming up with Chief Wahoo McDaniel.
Yeah. Well, Wahoo got busted open, and when he did, being a little kid, seeing your favorite wrestler hurt, you start bawling your eyes out.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I started bawling my eyes out because Wahoo was hurt.
Okay.
And my dad happened to know one of the police officers that was security there, and he asked him to go if he got a chance to go see if Wahoo was okay.
Right.
And Wahoo actually came out. He had a bandage over his head. Came out, saw I was standing there, and signed my program.
Okay. Cool.
At the time, and that's one of the strongest memories I have of Georgia Championship Wrestling. That, of course, we're going to get into one, and here's one that is right in your wheelhouse: Ricky Steamboat versus Ric Flair.
Oh man, that's the biggest, man. You don't get no better than that. Now I'm gonna go back a little bit before that. The first feud that I fondly remember is Ric Flair versus Chief Wahoo McDaniel. Okay. That feud right there. This is right after Ric Flair had his plane crash. Now I was watching wrestling before that, Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. I was watching it before that because my brother was a huge wrestling fan, and my uncles and my aunts and my grandmother. They watched it all the time. So I was watching it before that, the Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling area, watching George and Sandy Scott, man, Johnny Weaver, Johnny Valentine, Johnny Valentine, Chief Wahoo McDaniel. Now that was a huge feud in the Carolinas. That really pretty much put the Carolinas over, because Johnny Valentine and Chief Wahoo McDaniel, that was the hardest hitting feud I ever seen. You talking about an Indian man that didn't take a step back, and Johnny Valentine was the modern day Gunther. I mean, Johnny Valentine was vicious. You think Greg was good? Johnny Valentine was vicious. He was incredible, man. But he got messed up in that plane crash too, and he was never able to wrestle again. But first feud I really remember was Chief Wahoo McDaniel and Nature Boy Ric Flair. And once again, you're talking about somebody getting their head busted open. I was 8 years old, man. This was in '75. I was at the Greenville Memorial Auditorium, and I had already been watching wrestling, like I say, for a few years, because I had been watching since I was 4 or 5 years old, but really did not pay no attention to it First time I really paid attention to it on TV was Chief Wahoo McDaniel. He's in it again. He's always involved in this. This is the first time I really paid attention to wrestling and really wanted to know what was going on. I was 7 years old, I think, seven or going on 8. This was in 74 or 75, one of the two. It was going, is in between that. Chief Wahoo McDaniel knocked out the teeth of Dean Malenko's father, Boris Malenko. I'll never forget that. And after that, all the kids, man, in the whole neighborhood, and we walked around for miles. Everybody was talking about it. Everybody was talking about it in school the next day. I went to Greenville Memorial Auditorium maybe a couple months after that. And this right here, you know, the Boris Malenko thing, after he knocked his teeth out, that finished that feud. That was a feud I really didn't get to get into, but they was feuding. Chief Wahoo McDaniel was the Mid-Atlantic heavyweight champion. He was wrestling Ric Flair at the auditorium. Now, Ric Flair was a totally different person when I went and saw this match at the auditorium. Because I remember Ric Flair, he was teaming with Rip Hawk just before the plane crash. He was a big guy. You know, he was a big guy. He was a lot bigger than what he was. He came back, he had slimmed down, and plus he had crushing vertebrae, so he was a little bit shorter because he was like 6'2", 300 pounds. He was a power lifter when he was with Rip Hawk because he used to team, you know, he used to roommate with Ken Patera, and he was a power lifter. But let's get to the feud, what started this feud. Chief Wahoo McDaniel was going to go up against Ric Flair. Man, they going at it back and forth at the Greenville Auditorium. Chief Wahoo McDaniel with all his experience and everything, so of course he was getting the better. He was getting the better of Ric Flair. He chopped him a couple times. Ric Flair flew out. You know, he flew out the ring, man, backwards. He went out. He went through the second rope between the second and third rope. He landed on his back outside the ring. And Chief Wahoo McDaniel come out, and Chief Wahoo McDaniel, you know, look around at the fans or whatever. You know, before he went over there to get Rick, you know, doing that little bigging thing, but he's backing up. And Ric Flair grabbed under the ring or whatever. He grabbed the 2x4. And Wahoo come over there and whap. He smacked Wahoo right up across the forehead. Blood just went gushing everywhere, man. Smacked the crap out of him with that 2x4. And everybody just went flipping crazy in that building, man. It was, you know, 7,000 people in there. You know, it was packed out. That's the most that Greenville Auditorium could hold. And people used to be so packed in there, man. People, you know, especially kids, we would have to sit in the aisles, you know, in the aisles where people was walking up and had to sit, move over so they could walk up. But that place was packed out. Everybody just went flipping crazy, man, when that happened. Because Wahoo was such a huge baby face, well, a huge good guy. You know, good guys and bad guys back then. Hey, we didn't know all these terms. Let's go ahead and be honest about it. But popped him upside the head. All the blood went gushing out, and people just started going nuts, booing like crazy. Man, Ric Flair, when he hit him upside the head with that, he got up, walked around, did a little strut outside the ring, and went, woo! That's the first time I heard the woo. And well, actually, he had it before, but that's the loudest I ever heard it because I was inside the arena. He had started doing it right before Rip Hawk, right before the plane crash. And as soon as he did that, man, and slinging that blonde hair, big smile came over my face. I was like, wow, man, this guy's incredible. This is a star. This is a superstar. And, you know, I looked at him just like I looked at Muhammad Ali back then. And Muhammad Ali, you know how huge he was. I looked at him like I looked at Ali or Dr. J in basketball. You know, I hate to say it, but O.J. Simpson was the biggest football player at the time. I looked at him like those superstars. I'm like, man, this guy's on a different level. And just off of that cheating there and the strut and the woo, you know, just you know, the swag that he presented back then. And man, and I smiled. I was a kid, and my aunt got so mad. They looked back and they were just mad because they was basically crying seeing that happen to Wahoo. I had this big grin on my face, man, because I was like, this is my favorite wrestler. I never liked the bad guy. Before that, I'm like, this is now my favorite wrestler. And they were like, you like him, don't you? I was like, no, I don't. No, I don't. And they was like, yes, you do. And my aunt Jacqueline, she the one who said that. Then my aunt Tony, she turned around, and my uncle Milton turned around, and they all said that my aunt my grandmother Eloise turned around, man. They all started fussing at me, man. I'm like a 7-8-year-old kid, Jim. I'm like, oh, you know, I don't know. Everybody in that whole section turned around and started looking at me and fussing at me about this guy, man. It was just like,
Oh man.
And you know, I'm just like, I don't like him. I don't like him. But the next day in school, because it was every Monday night in Greenville Auditorium. The next day at school, man, I went back to school. Everybody was talking about it because it was, you know, they used to have it on the nightly news.
Right.
Everybody was talking about it, man. At school the next day. And, you know, we was on the playground and they were talking about it. You know, I had a smile on my face and the kids just went crazy. Basically, almost a riot out there, man. Out there playing kickball, and everybody turned on me. Oh, Harry likes Ric Flair. But people was pissed off. But that right there was the first major feud that I remember. And then, like I say, he had that thing with Chief Wahoo McDaniel for like 9 to 10 months. Come 1976, here come a man out of Hawaii. Wrestled Ric Flair on his debut on Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. Defeated Ric Flair. And man, Ric Flair just went flipping nuts. I was just stunned. I was like, wow. Young guy, better looking than Ric Flair when it boils down to it, as far as what Ric Flair was thinking. All the women just went crazy. Good looking guy, tan, very muscular guy, very athletic. You know, it took him out. I'm like, wow, man, this guy's my favorite wrestler now. So I'm like 1 and 2. He became my favorite wrestler. Ricky Steamboat became my favorite wrestler after that, man. And Ric Flair did everything he could to take this dude down. And the major incident that I will always remember, this only happened like after he had been there for like 3 or 4 weeks. Ric Flair took his face, you know, called him out, and he grabbed him. You know, he attacked him, grabbed him by his face, and pretty much just swiped it back and forth on the cement floor. And Ricky Steamboat for a few weeks had that big, you know, that bruise on his face, man, was just messed up. It was messed up, big, red, and just. But Ric Flair, man, and Ricky Steamboat, talking about a feud, and that thing lasted there from like 76 to 78. It was incredible, man, to watch. It was just unbelievable. And then they reunited it a couple times in the 80s, like in 82, 83, and then they reunited it in 89. But people talk about all those matches, man. They don't understand the magnitude of what was going on with those guys between 76, 78. And Ric Flair, the best Ric Flair I've seen was like 78, 79. But him and Ricky Steamboat went back and forth for that United States Heavyweight Championship, the Mid-Atlantic Championship, Heavyweight Championships. That was just an incredible feud, man. Straight up.
Well, you know, the funny thing is, if you look at any of their wrestling matches, and when I say the wrestling matches, you look at the ones when they were fighting over the NWA World Title.
Oh yeah.
Okay, you know, the big gold. All right. Those matches, I would put any of their matches against the Ricky Steamboat, Randy Macho Man Savage match.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Because they were so fluid in the ring.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's well, they said it. I've heard Dusty Rhodes, I've heard Tully Blanchard, I've heard all these people say they never discussed the match before they got in the ring. They knew what they were going to do. Yeah, like that.
Yeah, man. Those two was clockwork together. There's no doubt.
I mean, if you had a dance partner, you know, that would be the way to do it. Is you just like Fred and Ginger, not saying any disrespectful about them. Oh, while I'm thinking about it, you know, I want to go ahead and send out my thoughts and prayers to the Anoa'i family for the passing of Sika. You know, Roman Reigns' dad. And,
all prayers to Roman Reigns and his family. Man, you know, may they be comforted in this time. That right there is rough. And wow. Sika, Alpha and Sika, one of my favorite tag teams of all time. I have them in the top 20. I think I have them ranked like 16th. But I enjoyed watching their matches 100%, even though I wasn't basically for bad guys or whatever. But I love that tag team, man. They was incredible to watch. Really was. My favorite Samoan tag team was those guys.
Well, one of the interesting things,
Scott Pierce, I see you, brother.
About Mid-Atlantic that I've Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. And here's when, Johnny Valentine and Greg Valentine both held the Mid-Atlantic title.
Oh yeah.
Father-son held that regional title. Now, from what I know, from what I've checked this, I've gone through this several times. The only father and son to hold the same world title is Cody Rhodes and Dusty Rhodes. They both held the NWA title.
Okay. Yeah.
But I thought that was incredibly interesting. You were talking about before we went on the air, Abdullah the Butcher.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is Ole Anderson, when he was the booker and part owner of Georgia Championship Wrestling, he had a skinny blonde-headed Tommy Rich in the ring with Abdullah the Butcher. And every week he got beat. But Ole said, I see something in that boy. And every week he got closer and closer and closer.
I'll never forget it.
And then finally, I believe it was in the Omni, he finally beat Abdullah the Butcher cleanly in the ring for the 1, 2, 3. And that right there, as a promoter, that is smart, building up a character, building up a wrestler to that degree where eventually he goes to win the NWA world title.
Oh yeah.
My biggest, I guess the biggest feud I remember in Georgia Championship Wrestling, one of the biggest, with the exception of Wrestling 2 and Mass Superstar, would have to be Tommy Rich and Buzz Sawyer.
There's no doubt about that. Let me get Scott Pierce real quick. Scott Pierce says, I always like the feud with Nikita and Magnum TA. I do too, Scott. And that's why you see, if you look in the thumbnail there, the thumbnail that I put up, I have Magnum, I think Magnum and Magnum TA and Nikita Koloff is the first one on that. I'm not exactly sure, but I think it is, or it's the biggest one. But that's one of my favorite feuds I did. You said Antelli, you like Antelli and Magnum TA too. That was a great feud too. That was an outstanding feud. But yeah, that one with him and Nikita Koloff, man, was just incredible. One of the greatest feuds of all time. And you're speaking of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling now. I love Georgia Championship Wrestling. They had a lot of great feuds. But when it boils down to it, the greatest in history, in my opinion, me and Scott, we're going to continue to do this. There's a lot of great feuds that came out of World Class. A lot of great feuds came out of Memphis. A lot of great feuds came out of Southwest, man. Yeah, Chavo Guerrero versus Chavo Guerrero and Gino Hernandez, short feud.
Gino Hernandez.
Yeah, great feud. Yeah. So it's a lot of great feuds in a lot of different territories we will talk about. But man, as far as you want to look for great feuds, Mid-Atlantic Championship area. But Georgia, speaking of Georgia Championship Wrestling, let's get back to that Buzz Sawyer and Tommy Rich, and then I want to talk about one in that area, man, that I definitely want to talk about. Go ahead.
That feud lasted 2 years, and the reason that I remembered that is because I was with my dad at the Cobb County Civic Center. They broke out into a fight, a legit fight.
Oh yeah,
and chairs were being thrown, and I remember a police officer running over the chairs to get to them because they were endangering the public.
Right,
and they last I heard, they got both of them got arrested or got hauled away in cuffs and a work arrest. And basically, what wound up boiling down to was a last Battle of Atlanta in the Omni.
Oh yeah.
Now this match would probably have to be the grandfather of Hell in the Cell, because this is the first time they put a ring around. They put a cage around the ring, put a top on it. Plus, they had a shark cage for the manager, Paul Ellering of Buzz Sawyer. And I remember, because I was there with my parents, it was a very cold, rainy day. when we got there, and that was going to be the main event. And I will be honest with you, when Jim Ross says a Crimson Mask, he never seen that match live.
No, heck no.
I mean, I was so close, Harry, to that match. You could literally smell copper in the air. That coppery smell.
Yeah.
That's how much they bled in that match.
God. Man, that match, yeah, I remember when that ended. They said this is something, it had to end right there. They couldn't go on anymore. And I'm gonna be honest with you, to tell you the truth, Jim. I think that took so much out of Tommy Rich. It took so much out of him. He wasn't the same after that feud was over. He was not the same.
Now he went on and had some good feuds, and he went into other territories like Memphis and places like that.
He did. Yeah.
But that match right there, it took a lot out of both of them.
Yeah, it did.
Because soon after that, Buzz Sawyer left the territory.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, it wasn't over a belt. There was no championship involved in that.
No, it wasn't. No.
It was just, I don't like you. I don't like you. And they just start slugging it out. And, they destroyed the studio a couple of times where Gordon Soley was.
Oh, yeah.
And, that match to me was brutal. That match was hidden for so long. And here's the funny thing. When they finally found a copy of that match to put on the WWE network at the time before they went to Peacock.
Oh, yeah.
Vince McMahon wound up paying $1 million for that match. That one match. Because that match was everybody remembers that match, but nobody remembers exactly, it was never filmed. And somebody actually brought an 8mm camera to there and filmed the match. I think everybody, I think Harry is frozen right now. But that match was one of the better matches feud-wise. Another one, and I'm going to touch on this, Scott, is the Magnum TA and Nikita Koloff match. Now, Magnum and Nikita, I can honestly say, without a shadow of a doubt, because I've got a copy of that belt right there, which was the NWA United States Championship. I could say without a doubt that they had established the United States title as almost on the same tier as the World Heavyweight title, because they had basically taken the best of 7 matches, and they didn't do it just all in Georgia or all in the Mid-Atlantic area. They did it all over the place.
Sorry about that, man. Not my phone. I had it on my phone, and my phone, I don't know what in the world. It died out. It got too hot. I don't know why it got too hot right there, but I was outside just before I got on, and I guess that heat out there had got to it, and it still was running. Let me turn it off and turn it back on. But I didn't hear everything you were saying, but I know where you was going with that. That Buzz Sawyer feud, man. That Buzz Sawyer feud with Tommy Rich was just, wow, it's out of this world. That thing was, that was one of the most hard-hitting feuds that I ever seen in my life. One of the wildest feuds. It was just out of this world, man. You couldn't.
I mean, you could literally, Harry, smell the copper in the air. That copper smell that comes from blood after that match.
Yeah.
That match was that bad. I mean, well, when I say bad, I don't say it was a stinker. No. What I'm saying is that match was so brutal by today's standards
Mm-hmm.
that you can't replicate something like that. Hey, Braden, how are you doing? I just saw you pop on.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and say this real quick. I was tired of it, man. I was so happy that it was over. I was like you said, it lasted for 2 years. And
Yeah.
that's one thing I try to explain to a lot of young people today. I mean, they just don't get it. A lot of them don't get it. And we was talking to these guys Saturday, man, about long-term story telling. That was me, Bill Hazelwood, and a lot of these some of the older guys. We was talking to these guys about feuds. Man, that feud went on for 2 years. You know how much money Ole Anderson and the Briscoes made off of that? We talked about Jimmy the Boogie Woogie Man Valiant, his feud with Paul Jones' army, his feud with Gary Hart's army before that. It went on, man. If you combine both of those things, man, that thing went on in the territory for like 4 years between those two, those two armies that he was feuding with. Jimmy Boogie Woogie Man Valiant. Long-term storytelling, man. Back then, it ruled the day. If you had something real good, like you had Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair, that thing went from 76 to 78. It paused there for a minute because Ric Flair became a fan favorite, teamed up with Ricky Steamboat a little bit, resumed in 79. They ended it again in 79. Ric Flair started pretty much going around the world with Andre the Giant and going, pretty much going out to, Missouri out there with Harley Race and everything. And he come back in 1980, they team it up again. And then Ric Flair won the world championship. And then 1983, they resumed it again right before Steamboat went up to WWE. They resumed it again, and then they resumed it again in 89. So you talking about long-term storytelling and, something that people wanted to see. You talking about two guys who wrestled hundreds of times. That's why they were so fluid in the ring. Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat. Buzz Sawyer and Tommy Rich, they wrestled hundreds of times, man, doing that feud. It's not just these matches where you put two main guys in like they're doing today, and next thing you know, they beat that one guy, and there's nothing left. Like Roman Reigns already unsmashed him. Just how many people can you smash? How many people can you smash? You need to build a storyline off of these top guys. They need to be able to battle, just like a football team. A football team year after year, same players back in the day, especially back in the day before they had all the free agency. Those teams, you have the same guys 7, 8, 9 years going at each other, trying to defeat the other team. Basketball, NBA, over and over again. But I'm gonna go ahead and let you, what you about to say, Scott? I mean, Scott. I'm looking at Scott's name. Jim. I'm sorry about that. I'm looking at Scott's name.
Well, something that I just can't wrap my head around is a lot. Well, first of all, that I want to make this clear. There's a difference between the independent circuit and the territories.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
I want to clarify that. The territories are where these wrestlers got their names.
Yeah.
That's before the independent circuit.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing. The second thing is I cannot wrap my head around why you would put one guy in the ring and another guy in the ring, and there's no backstory.
Right.
There's no backstory. If it's, even if it's a start by he interferes or he's a bounty hunter, trying to collect the bounty. I know. Ric Flair hired Harley Race hired a couple of bounty hunters.
Yeah, Dick Slater and Bob Orton Jr.
Yeah, hired them to go after Ric Flair.
Yes,
that's how, because number one, if you're finishing up a feud, you want to make sure that your top guy has got one on the back burner.
Right. Right.
You want to start that story off, and that's one of the things I've noticed about Triple H. is his storytelling is he literally is going the old school way. He will have either a smosh in the back that they're filming, and somebody gets attacked by somebody. Oh, who was it? That's a classic territory move. You know that with a there's a there's a there's something going on in the back. Let's get a camera back there, and then you see somebody like Ricky Steamboat passed out
Right.
in a pool of blood, and then it's who did it, who did it, who did it, and then that starts off a good feud. You want you generally want to play the long game when you're
Oh
a
yeah.
promoter.
Oh yeah.
You don't want to just throw two people in the ring and just have a Chicago street fight. There's no backstory. Granted, it may be good, it may be a good match, but you don't want to do that. The storytelling from the territory days is a lot better. Was a lot better. It was brutal, but it was a lot better then than you see a lot of today.
Oh yeah, way better, man, way better. I mean, in my opinion, nobody as good as I think Triple H. He's doing storylines. He's doing some storylines in the WWE that's kind of close to what we saw. And I can't give him credit for the bloodline. I can't give him credit for that bloodline feud. What he's doing now, of course, but I cannot give him credit for the initial burst of that. That was Vince McMahon's baby right there. Now, Judgment Day, I will give him credit for that. But well, Vince was there too at that time when it first started. But I do not. What I don't see, and what I do wish he gets. I do wish he get a handle on is to be able to have multiple good storylines in one setting. Like not have a good storyline here and there, and then it goes on for a few months. You got to have good storylines for all your top people, and a good storyline for maybe your top mid Carter. That was the genius of Jim Cornette. Not Jim Cornette, but Jimmy Crockett. With Dusty Rhodes and whoever they was working with, he was able to, and even Georgia Championship Wrestling was too. They was able to have multiple feuds going on at the same time, so they could run just like Crockett. He ran a show on the same night, a B, C, and a D show. He had 4 shows running in different cities on different nights, and you will have guys, man. Each and every one of them will have an important storyline going on. To carry that. So he always had main eventers that could carry a certain show by themselves, and they would always have a mid Carter, man, that had something going on because face it, Jimmy Valiant was, the Boogie Woogie Man was a mid Carter, but you had those feuds with Shaska Watley. You had those feuds, Jimmy Valiant with the Masked Superstar, 1 and 2, or just with the Masked Superstar, and Masked Superstar was a little bit higher on that plane. But he had some major feuds there with Jimmy Valiant. The Great Kabuki versus Jimmy Valiant. They was mid-Carters, man, when it boils down to it. And that right there was going on when the 4 horsemen, and each one of them horsemen had a feud going on. You had Arn and Tully. Maybe you're having a feud with Rock and Roll Express. They wasn't having it with the Rock and Roll Express. They was having it with the Anderson brothers. Ole and Arn, not Ole and Gene, but Ole and Arn. They was having it with them. Ric Flair was having a feud with whoever he was having a feud with at that time. It could have been, Magnum TA. It could have been Nikita Koloff or whatever. But you had so many different feuds going on, and they all worked out, man. It just that's why, like I said, it's so iconic. When you go back and look at, and I was talking to Chris, I said, when we see actual footage from wrestling online today, what do we see? We see those old clips, and most of them come from Jim Crockett Promotions, WCW, before he even became WCW, but the WCW Georgia Championship Wrestling area. We see those feuds. So there was so many great things going on at one time, and that's one thing that I want. I wish Triple H. I'm hoping that he's able to master that, because he's got great talent, you know. But you need to have. We can't just up and focus on. Okay, Cody's the champ, man. So let's put Cody in there against AJ, and let's put him in an I Quit match. It was too early for the I Quit match. I Quit match is something that should finish up a long-term feud. You know, you have the Liv Morgan story going on, but you have nothing going on with your tag team champions. And of course, Miz and R-Truth just lost theirs, but you have nothing going on with Austin Theory and Grayson Waller. But you should, all your champions should be in something that makes sense, something that looks good. He has Chad, you know, right now he has that with Sami Zayn, and he has Chad Gable, and it's supposed to be going over the Intercontinental Championship. You don't want your championship to be hot and then it got cold. It was hot with Gunther. It was hot with Gunther. Now it's cold. It could have stayed hot if Chad would have ended up having it, and you would have had him being a fighting champion. Sami Zayn, they took it and they said, okay, what are we going to do next? You know, that's the only thing I have with Triple H is that, you know, with all the people they have working with him, it seems like they can't navigate, you know, their responsibilities to have a bunch of different great feuds going on at one time. You know, but they do better than AEW. I will say that. But well, yeah, let's go ahead. I got to get some comments, man. Go ahead.
What I was going to say, you was talking about mid-card titles and everything. Yeah. One of the things the promoters, you know, hated back in the day was when the mid-card title got more relevant than the world title.
Oh, yeah.
And it happened, and I was talking to Scott on this when you had little technical difficulties.
Okay.
That the Magnum TA Nikita Koloff Best of 7 series.
Oh gosh, man.
For the U.S. title,
made
that title as relevant or close to the NWA World's title.
Oh yeah.
And you know, I feel like the promoters cannot fault the wrestlers for going out there and performing, or you know, making a story, because they didn't have writers back then.
No, they did. No, they did.
They said this one, we want this one to win, you know, tonight. Or this one to win tomorrow night. Whatever the case may be. Same thing with the Tully Blanchard Magnum TA I Quit match. In the steel cage, and I believe that was in Greenville, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. It was. And the Great Valentine, I think the Great Valentine I Quit match. No, it wasn't. No, that wasn't in Greenville.
The dog collar match.
Yeah, the dog collar match. Before that one, the match right before that happened was in Greenville too. But that was an awesome match too, man. That dog collar, that was, in my opinion, that was the top feud outside of Ricky Steamboat, Ric Flair, the Greg the Hammer Valentine, and I know it gets buried, but Greg the Hammer Valentine versus Roddy Piper, that's the best feud outside of Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat that I ever seen. That was an incredible feud, man.
I believe that was for the U.S. title, but I think
it was for the U.S. title. Yes, sir.
And I know the Magnum and Tully Blanchard match was for the U.S. title as well.
Yeah. All right, Braden says, hey, Harry and Jim, what's going on? Braden, awesome, says Scott Pierce.
Hey, Ray.
Scott Pierce says, I agree, and I think he was talking to you. Went on for years. Yes, sir, Scott. Those were good old days. Yes, sir. My man Glenn White says, sup. What's up, Glenn White?
What's up, Glenn? How you doing today?
Glenn White from We Know Wrestling. All right. But, yeah, guys, look, man, it was just a whole different day. It really was. I mean, these feuds, they just made wrestlers, man. They made them. I mean, and these guys, we can look at Roddy Piper. He went up to WWE and he became huge doing the Rock and wrestling, the Rock and Soccer, or the Rock and Wrestling connection thing. Yeah, he definitely did go up there. But he was already famous before that. He was already famous because of what he did in Georgia Championship Wrestling, what he did with Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. These guys was already famous, man. They was already huge. Roddy Piper kept running with that thing with his ear, kept running with it for years. Because he was just known for that because of that dog collar match. He's supposed to have all this damage in his ear. What is his name? Bob Orton Jr. for that attack. Him and Dick Slater collecting that money on Ric Flair, that bounty that Harley Race put on him. Ric Flair, he injured Bob Orton Jr.'s arm there. I mean, you know, his forearm right there. Bob Orton Jr. ran with that cast for years. He decided,
many years.
He decided he took that. Actually, 2 years ago, he did an indie show 2 years ago. Guess what? He wrestled with the cast on. But
well, what's so funny?
Yeah.
What's so funny is, you know, I'm sure our grandchildren, our great grandchildren are going to say, well, back in the 2000s when Roman Reigns had the title, those were the good old days.
Oh yeah.
But the thing is you cannot, you cannot recreate something as good as that. You can try. I mean, I can understand them. The current edition of NWA wanting to start branching out and doing the territory system. I know that they're about to crown a NWA Mid America heavyweight champion. I think that's going to be in the area of Kentucky, that general area. Basically you can't create the magic that was back in the territory days. There's no way of doing it.
Heck no, man. Heck no. It's not going to be duplicated. Look, only you have to have some true dedication. It can be done, Scott, but you really have to have some true dedication, and you have to have whoever's running this thing, and it has to be done by WWE or AEW, and they have to turn off social media. They do. They're gonna have to go through some scrutiny, and pretty much go with what their gut feeling is, and just run it and run that card. Just like, this past weekend, man. This past weekend we had the CMW show. The CMW show. I went up there and I booked that show, and we had a few people that didn't show up, and I had to book as I went. But everybody that was there enjoyed the show, talking about the matches. Right now, they talking about the matches like crazy. CMW, the CMW chat won't stop. All I'm getting is ding, ding, ding. All these guys, all of them coming up with these matches. They going crazy because how great the show was. But and they coming up with their own matches. I want to do this. I want to do that. Hey, the reason that your last two shows that you had, the reason they came out the way it was is because that's the way we designed it. And that's what these if they have a good idea, I listen to the ideas. You have a good idea, man, I'm gonna roll with it. But if you don't, like I say, let that one or two people that's together come together as a collective, and the way they see your character and put together something good. Man, but what's up? My man Brian Gunnell's talking about a wrestler, Brian Bullet, that's running with our roster. Brian Bullet is in the house. But look, man, it was just totally different back then, Brian. You didn't have these bookers. You might have them collaborating with wrestlers or a wrestler or two and collaborating with the promoter, but you didn't have to have them trying to collaborate with the general public. And that's what you have. Not really just the general public, basically marks, man, all over the internet, and just basically telling them what to do. This is what I think, what to do. And sadly, man, is you have a lot of people following, a lot of promoters following, a lot of bookers following, or writers following, following these people, trying to write for them, to please them. And these are the results that we're getting. We're not getting old school wrestling, even when you have somebody from the old school booking these certain matches. I mean, Jim Cornette, he comes out and he talks, and I love listening to what Jim Cornette has to say. But with Smoky Mountain, when it boils down to it, man, he did real good with his territories. But at Smoky Mountain, he pretty much followed the tree too. He pretty much did some of the things that he shouldn't have done. What fans pretty much saying, do this and do that. He played follow the leader. Let's put it that way. He started playing follow the leader, and that happened to him. You just cannot do it, man. Because once you get involved in that and you lose you lose because you're trying to gain people. But if you lose your core audience, they're never coming back. Most likely they're not. So,
well, I mean, not to interrupt you, Harry,
yeah.
but one of the things about the territory system is, back then, these belts meant something.
Oh, yes, sir.
The wrestlers made them relevant.
Yeah.
Nowadays it's, you have a veteran come in. Let's say you have, Buff Bagwell come in, and he's going to wrestle your top heel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if your top heel is inexperienced, and he says, "Well, I want to get my high spots in,"
yeah,
no, what the conversation should be this: how can I make you look as good as I possibly can?
Oh yeah.
And what does the promoter want? And if what the promoter wants, if they want this guy that he paid $1,000 to come in for a show and a meet and greet,
right,
to go over, then basically that's the way it's going to be.
Right.
I mean, you're not fooling anybody. I mean, I've been in the wrestling business.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a producer. I've been a photographer. I've been backstage. I've talked to people. I've met people. And I've seen. I've just sit there and absorbed everything like a sponge.
Oh yeah.
This day and age, if you're doing an independent show, what you want is the best outcome that will bring the fans back to see other shows that you have.
Right.
You don't want to sit there and just have one show and put your eggs in one basket. You want to leave them something to come back for.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. And look, man, I don't know. It just, the territories was just something totally different, and they knew how to run storylines. They knew what to do, and they knew the right people to put together in these storylines too. Scott Pierce says great feuds taking place in CMW. Yeah, it's not Evolution no more, Scott. It's CMW only, man. We dropping the name. The name is dropped. It's not CMW Evolution anymore, Scott. All right. What's up, bud? My man Brian Bullet says Scott Pierce, the NG run CMW, not CMW Evolution. That thing is dropped. Max Savage is going to the top, be the top face of CMW. I hear you. Scott Pierce, the NG is on top. Max Savage says it's not happening. All right, Max, I appreciate it. Now, all of them talking about CMW, that's the show that I'm booking for. Me and Christopher Burton pretty much is vice presidents of that. Well, I'm senior vice president. He's vice president. And Scott Pierce is one. But Scott Pierce, we will be looking into your contract, sir, being a manager. You are a manager and you're a general manager and a vice president, and you are running as a manager of wrestlers, a heel manager. And that's something that I'm not gonna tolerate too long. So I just want to let you know what I'm tolerating and what I'm not gonna tolerate. But yeah, I appreciate you coming on. Jim, we're gonna come on a little bit later, man. We're gonna do a part 2, but we're gonna do this in sections. And when we come back, I do want to talk about that Nikita Koloff. I'm gonna start off with that Nikita Koloff Magnum TA feud, and we're gonna go Magnum TA Tully Blanchard, and then we'll go down the line with a couple more. But we're gonna do probably about 5 or 6 each time, man. I'm gonna get into the Oli and Gene Anderson versus Paul Jones and Chief Wahoo McDaniel. That was a great feud. So get into some of these feuds, man. We definitely gonna get into some of these feuds. But I am gonna do AEW tonight, guys. I haven't done AEW in a couple weeks, but I'm gonna roll into that. I went ahead and decided to do this with Jim. I really haven't even got to all the shows, the 2 shows before this, but I'm trying to catch up with AEW. But I'm gonna watch that tonight, and me and Jim, we're gonna come back. Jim, I'm gonna be setting that thing up for the next show, but I'll talk to you in just a little bit, man. But just stay here while we sign off. Any other feud? We got time to talk about maybe one more. Let's talk about one more feud that maybe you want to speak on.
Oh Lord, we've already talked about the Tommy Rich Buzz Sawyer match.
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna throw one out there that wasn't necessarily Georgia, wasn't necessarily Mid Atlantic, but it was quite memorable.
Okay,
the Road Warriors versus the Anderson brothers. They were. It was during the Jim Crockett days.
That was Mid-Atlantic, man. Jim Crockett is Mid-Atlantic.
Yeah, I know, but I believe Jim Crockett had bought Georgia at that time.
Yeah. You talking about the Road Warriors against Ole and Arn. Ole
right.
and his nephew, Arn. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That I mean, I saw them I seen them, of course, at the Bash, you know.
Oh yeah.
You remember the VHS going to Blockbuster and picking them up.
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah.
Same here, man. I would go there because we couldn't afford to go to the closed circuit to watch it. So when it came to VHS, I was there and I picked up that. I picked up a couple of them, you know.
Yeah, man.
Actually, the VHS is where a lot of the feuds came out of.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that was a great feud, man. And look, big ups to all the Abner magazines, because the Abner magazines was essential in keeping a lot of feuds going. You know, those headlines that was on those Abner magazines, and you will see feuds from other territories or territories. I mean, do you think the feud will be over? And next thing you know, it's back up in the Abner magazines. The Abner magazine done hyped it up even more, and they got to keep it going, man. It was just, it was crazy. It was. Those were the days, man. It really was. Those were some great days, and people long for that. And I think the wrestlers, even these young wrestlers that don't even know about that, they long for those days because they see it. They see the nostalgia being replayed online, man. You know, people talking about these matches, they want to be what they see. They wonder how those guys were such big stars and why people, you know, I think they could feel, you could actually feel it, you know, by watching it just on the internet, the magic that was created by these guys. And I think a lot of these wrestlers out here today, they want that. They long for that, because when it boils down to it, let's go ahead and be real. It's not the same. It's not the same. The fan adulation is nowhere near the same. I mean, I'm sure, Jim, you can remember back when you was going to the Omni or Cobb County Civic Center, how the fans never shut up. It just went on and on. Yeah, went on and on.
What's so interesting is if you look at Japan, New Japan Pro Wrestling, they're very quiet. They're very respectful.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they see a move, they'll golf clap, and that's it.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, nowadays, I mean, you look at what they're doing with Dominic Mysterio. They're booing him out of the building practically every time he picks up a microphone. Back then, they were the same way. Of course, they didn't have the shirts or the posters.
Oh, yeah.
In the arena, they would sit there with the popcorn and the soda and watch the matches and root for their guys and boo for the bad guys, things of that nature. You know, it was simple, but it was effective at the same time.
Big time.
And, you know, the Road Warriors and Andersons was one of the better feuds. I could also throw Rock and Roll Express and the Andersons in there.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, the Andersons, not Ole, but the Road Warriors. The Road Warriors are versus Nikita and Ivan Koloff, or Nikita Koloff and Crusher Khrushchev. The Road Warriors versus the Koloffs was just versus the Russians. That was incredible. But yeah, Scott Pierce says, when you look into my contract, you will see my contract is an ironclad contract. It has been since day one. I know about your contract. That's when Octavius had signed your contract. Octavius is no longer right now. He's inactive. So that contract becomes, I'm not going to say it's null and void, but hey, there's a way to get into your contract because HBT is running this thing. And pretty much you and Christopher Burton, y'all fall under that. So that contract could be pretty much appended when it boils down to a Scott Pierce. I will be looking into that straight up. Scott Pierce says, this is a great show, guys. Definitely is, Scott. We appreciate you coming on. My man, Braden, we appreciate him coming on. Brian Bullock coming on. Let's see who else. Glenn White coming through. We appreciate everybody else coming through, man. There's a lot more people coming through. I see pretty much from what we're viewing here. Appreciate everybody coming on, checking us out. Man, that was on Facebook. Everybody who checked us out over on YouTube, everybody who checked us out on Twitch, and everybody who checked us out on X, guys. And before you leave, man, whatever platform you're on, definitely hit that like and share this 100%. But, man, I'm about to go into AEW Dynamite. I'm going to do that. I'm going to sign off with my man, Scott. My man, not Scott. Goodness sake, Scott, I'm looking at the name again. Sign off with my man, Jim Rogers. We will get to you later. But, guys, me and Scott, not Scott, me and Jim. Scott, let me take these comments off. Okay, me and Jim Rogers, we will get back to you guys. I keep saying Scott because I'm looking at Scott's name.
We're gonna what we're going to do in the second one, since we talked some feuds, maybe we'll hit and miss some of the other territories.
Yeah, we definitely will. But Scott, not though, Mighty Jim. Let me let you go, man. I have Scott's name.
All right, man.
In my vocabulary right now, but yeah, let me let you go and let me go ahead and hit this. Go ahead and hit this AEW tonight. And hey, I'm gonna hit you up in just a little bit, man, and we'll talk. Hey. Just stay here right now. We'll talk and we'll go ahead and set up for our next show. All right, man. Hey, I like this. This right here is being very enjoyable, but yeah, we should do some late nights on these, man. Okay. All right.
All right, man.
Talk to you in just a little bit, brother.
All right, Eddie.
All right, y'all stay straight up. Peace.